This is Latif on his presentation on alternative forage for shea flower visitors in northern Ghana.
Okay, this is Latif Iddrisu Nasare. I'm presenting on alternative forage for shea flower visitors in northern Ghana. I'm doing this on behalf of my co-authors. This will be the outline of the presentation. Shea, which is scientifically known as Vitellaria paradoxa, is a short to medium-sized tree that occurs in arid and semi-arid regions of sub-Saharan Africa. Its flowers often occur in dense fascicles of about 30 florets per inflorescence. It is a tree that occurs in dry areas and therefore has a thick corky bark as an adaptation to the perennial fires of the savannas. A fruit often contains a single seed, but in some cases, a fruit may have two seeds. This tree occurs in about 21 countries in Africa, ranging from Senegal in the west all the way to Central African Republic to Ethiopia. But there are two known subspecies. The one in East Africa and the other one in West and Central Africa, as shown in the figure. But in Ghana, shea is only in the northern part of the country. Specifically, the shea only occurs in the northern part of the country, in the Guinea and Sudan savanna zones. As I said, the flowers exhibit a protogenous development, and it's known to be one of the plants that are well adapted to insect pollination. The bees are the primary pollinators of these plants, and fruit sets can be influenced by access to insect pollination services. This tree is very important economically in Africa. It contributes to the livelihood of about 16.2 million people because the butter that is extracted from the shea kernel, known as the shea butter, is of industrial importance in cosmetics, pharmaceutical, and confectionery industries. Even the fruits are edible and contribute to food security in shea growing areas. Therefore, the sustainability of this plant is of essence to the continent of Africa. Notwithstanding all this importance, there pollination deficits being recorded shea, and that is leading to reduced fruit yield. And this pollination deficit is parklands that have reduced pollinator population. And these disturbances include indiscriminate tree felling, expansion of agriculture, and even bushfires. Disturbances are being felt in reducing fruit yield. And we have to optimize pollination services to get maximum fruit yield of shea. So there's a need to acquire under practices that can enhance pollinator population. A lot has been done on the plant right from the early 90s on pollination of shea, but we still do not have much research on strategies to enhance pollination services. Just recently in Burkina Faso in 2020, a study was done which found that enhancing tree diversity on the shea parkland increases pollinator population and pollinator visitation to the shea flowers. And this was an important finding. That means that the diversity of tree species on the shea parkland is of essence to pollination of shea. Yet we still do not know the various plants that are visited by the pollinators of shea. So we need to know all other flowering plants in the parkland that contribute to sustaining the pollinators when shea is not in flower. And this information is very relevant because if you have to restore shea parklands, we have to know the species that are of importance to the pollinators of shea. So this is the essence of this study. So the objective was, one, to identify which other flowering plants exist in the shea parkland, and what is the calendar of flowering within the year, the monthly distribution of the flowering plants. And then which insects visit these plants. So this work was done in 3 regions across the Guinea Savannah zone of Ghana. And this zone is a savanna area that records a unimodal rainfall pattern. Vegetation is dominated by grasses interspersed with woody perennials. So to identify woody plants that are flowering or woody plants in flower, a 100-meter transect of about 1 kilometer was established, and all woody plants located at 50 meters radius on both sides of the transect were identified. And then these plants were observed monthly to find when they flower. So this was done for a whole calendar year. And then flower visitors were sampled for any plant that came into flower on 2 occasions, in 2 weeks, to identify which insect species are visiting that particular plant. And then all these specimens were temporarily preserved in ethanol and brought to the Insect Museum of the Department of Conservation Biology for identification by taxonomists. So the results, what did we find? We recorded a total of about 32 woody plants that flower in the savanna, and the plants belong to about 15 families. But the dominant families in which these plants belong were Leguminaceae, Anaceae, and Combretaceae. The dominance of Leguminaceae is not that surprising because most studies that look at plant diversity in the savanna recorded this as the most dominant plant family. In terms of monthly distribution of flowering woody plants in flower, we have a dry season that spans from October to May, and then there's a rainy season from late May to September. So we have more plants flowering in the dry period compared to the rainy season of the savanna. And this is good news because what it means is that in the rainy season, we have grasses and shrubs that also provide some pollen. So that could supplement forage sources for bees. But the month of May recorded the highest abundance, also probably for plants to take advantage of the establishment. About 78% of the plants that flower are visited by Apis mellifera, and Apis mellifera is the primary pollinator of shea. So that means that many other plants in the savanna are very important to sustaining the primary pollinators of shea. And non-Apis, we're referring to other stingless bees that also visit flowers, specifically the Hypotrigona and the Meliponula, were all about 31% of the flowering plants are visited by these non-Apis mellifera. Then we also had non-bee flower visited. These included the beetles, some Hemiptera, and Lepidoptera that were also found on flowering plants. And a large number of them are also about 59% of the plants are visited by these other non-bee visitors. So in conclusion, we see there are many other plants that are visited, about 35 of them, by the pollinators of shea, the bees, but flower resources are not evenly distributed all year round. But Apis, for instance, to be specifically visited about 2/3 of these flowering plants in the shea parkland. So having found that there are many other plants that are visited by the primary pollinators of shea. Efforts towards restoring shea parklands should not be on planting only shea, but we should also plant other species that are of importance to the pollinators of shea for a holistic pollinator conservation. Further studies are also still required to know which floral resources are being collected by each of these florivorous insects that visit the plants. These are some of the references that were used, and these we want to acknowledge the support of Global Shea Alliance and Dr. Raphael Akombe at the insect taxonomies for identification. And thanks to you for listening as well. Thank you.